Have you, dear reader, ever seen a waterfall by the name of Stalpit? If not, then I can tell you that it can be found in the picturesque, and if you listen to the tales, perhaps even romantic, landskap of Småland. There, the Black River, after calmly flowing through green meadows in hundreds of gentle curves, cascades down a nearly vertical face of rock to then rest in a lake that lies below. Not far from Stalpit Falls, there is an old mansion, gloomy, dark, and abandoned. Just to gaze upon the great building with its boarded-up doors and windows makes you dispirited and glum, and you begin to suspect that there must be a reason behind the brooding silence. Why should such a scenic place be abandoned? Why isn't there at least a caretaker or a tour guide in that old, spacious building? Let us now listen to the words of a kindly old woman who once explained to me why the mansion is the way it is. I'll use her own words, of which perhaps there may be a surplus, but for just that reason they help to give her tale its authentic local character. To understand what the woman has to say about the mansion, we need to hear her tale from the beginning, and truly I mean the beginning, for her story begins with the dawn of time. So, I asked her, why isn't there any gentry living in Katrineholm? And this is the answer she gave. Well, first you should know that when Satan was cast out from heaven because of his pride and arrogance, there are other spirits with him, spirits that he had tempted into joining him in his rebellion against God. These beings were also cast out from heaven, and like yellowed leaves in an autumn storm, they fell to the earth. Some fell into lakes, others into forests, and others fell onto mountains. Wherever they fell, there they remained, and it was from that place that each one acquired their own profession, so to speak. They also took their names from where they fell. Thus, we have Sjösrå, Bergsrå, Skogsrå, and elves and witches. They're all described in the Old Catechism. Now, it just so happened that on that day, when all the rebellious spirits were cast out of heaven, 2 fell onto the rock where Katrineholm Mansion now stands, and they became mountainful. And after them, their offspring have lived there ever since. Many hundreds, even thousands of years they lived there, and though it happened that now and then one of them would be struck down by lightning, they were otherwise left in peace, and in turn they gave no offense to anybody else either. But long ago there was a nobleman who owned the Katrineholm estate, and he was going to build himself a house. As a wise man, he looked for solid ground to build his home upon, and he decided on the very same island of rock that the trolls lived in. The Mountain King, as his people called him, was not at all pleased. But his wife, who was very good-natured for her kind, asked her husband to be calm and not to do anything until after they had tested the human's character. When the house was finished, the nobleman wedded a beautiful young lady, and they filled their new home with joy. But lurking sorrow waits for many people who are unsuspecting, and so was the case here. One day, when the young bride was alone in her workroom, a little woman appeared in front of her, who curtsied and said, "My mistress wishes that you pay her a visit, and I am to say that if you do so, you will be richly rewarded." The young lady was somewhat taken aback by the request, but her heart was brave and her conscience clean, so she agreed to go and followed after the messenger. The little woman led the way down several stairways until they came to the cellars, and there they found a door the human residents of Katrineholm had never seen before, and it was built right into the solid rock of the island. Both women went through the doorway and into a long, dark tunnel that led to a large vault with walls that sparkled of silver and gold. In this magnificent chamber, a small man was pacing to and fro. He seemed troubled, maybe even scared. He didn't speak to the young lady, but he looked at her pleadingly with eyes that seemed both humble and searching. The little woman pushed aside a curtain to yet another vault, and now the young woman saw another troll woman. She lay upon a tidy bed, but was sick and suffering through a difficult childbirth. But the presence of the Christian woman was so powerful that the Mountain King's wife gave birth, and felt better right away. The Mountain Queen then produced a little chest filled with pearls, gemstones, and jewelry, saying, "Take this in memory of me, but don't let anyone know what has happened to you, because if you do, you shall suffer great misfortune." The lady returned up the stairs to her room, and there she carefully hid the box of queenly treasure. Time passed, and everything seemed to go well in the new house, and the young woman became herself the mother of 2 growing young boys. One day, when the brothers were playing alone, one of them found the little treasure chest, and they had just begun to play with its contents when their father walked in. He was shocked to find such treasures in the hands of his children, so he turned and left to go find his wife and ask her where she had got them. At first, she refused to tell her secret, but that only made her husband more curious. Eventually, he grew angry. He even accused her of being a witch. He said he thought he himself had once seen her come flying through the air on a broomstick. This was just too much for the poor misunderstood woman. So she told him the story of her visit to the trolls, but added, "But now our best days are behind us. Because of your curiosity, we are going to experience misfortune the likes of which you can't imagine." Just a few days later, in the lake below the waterfall, an island appeared, which, oddly enough, it seems to do when strange and important events are about to occur. The island is supposed to have been seen right before the deaths of King Karl XII and Gustav III, and people say that one of the kings had his name carved into a rock on the island, and that somebody has seen that stone when the island appeared later. I don't know why the island showed up that time. Maybe the trolls in the stone were in league with the Huas Roa, or maybe for some other reason. But either way, the mysterious island was plain to see, and the curious nobleman was eager to get a closer look at it. He wanted his wife and their 2 sons to come along too. The lady, fearing that misfortune was now at hand, protested and argued against the idea with all her might, and when that failed, she fell to her knees and pleaded and begged, but in vain. Finally, the stubborn man took the boys and left his wife at home, and the 3 of them rowed out to the island. Just as the boat bumped into the enchanted isle, the 2 boys hopped out onto the rocky shore. But just then the island disappeared, and the boys with it, and their father never saw them again. The poor woman died of grief, mourning her lost sons. And her husband then left, traveling to some foreign country, where he too passed away. But the building on Katrineholm has been empty ever since, and it's hard to imagine that anyone living there could be happy, at least for long.